bringing you guys my top 3 fades and sleeper picks for this week's Fortinet Championship. We're going to be covering in this video some of the guys being a little bit overhyped going into this week. Those are of course going to be my fades, as well as the guys being a little bit overlooked going into the tournament. Our sleeper picks, of course. Again, the goal here is to help you guys avoid some of those chalk bombs, the guys that are going to ruin everyone's lineups, and target some of the people being a little bit overlooked. Maybe the diamonds in the rough, they're going to end up pulling through for us. But before we get into the fades real quickly, just want to remind you that we have a live stream going on Wednesday at 7 p.m. for the Fortinet Championship. Going to be talking everything player pool in terms of Fortinet. We're going to be talking ownership updates, talking game theory notes, any Q&A that you guys have as well in the chat. So make sure to stop by Wednesday at 7 p.m. But without further delay, let's hop into the fades for this week. So kicking it off with Cameron Champ at number 3. He's $9,000 this week, which is frankly too expensive for somebody like Champ, even in a substandard field like this. And the fact that he's garnering over 16.8% of ownership, it's just definitely a fade for me this week. Getting into some of the reasons why, this course is only 7,166 yards, so seemingly Champ should be able to send bombs left and right, not have to worry about hazards, and have wedge into every single hole. But it's still highly questionable whether he has the skill set to take advantage of that strategy. He has the elite length, we just went over that. He's going to have wedge into 14 of 18 holes this week, but the fact is, in 2020, Champ ranked outside the top 100 in the sub 100 yard range, the 100 to 125 bucket, as well as the 125 to 150 bucket. So it was not good with his wedges, was hardly able to take advantage of that in 2020, and we saw his results dwindle as a result of that. Obviously had the win at the 3M Open. He was able to figure out the wedges that week, the putter as well. Was the worst putter on tour in 2020 up until that point, and ended up the number 1 putter up there in Minnesota. So not necessarily something you could have seen coming. And at 2019, when Champ won this event, when it was the Safeway Open, he did the same thing. He led the field in wedge play, also led it in putting, something we definitely can't see coming. So of late, obviously, even giving enough sample size to include that win there with the 3M Open, he's still losing significantly on approach, around the green, and hardly gaining with his putting. So that's over one of his best stretches of golf that we've seen. If we take a little bit of a wider view at all of 2020, he's losing in every category but off the tee. So hasn't been his best. And if we take a look at his splits on the bent POA hybrid, it gets even more disastrous. He loses an extra 0.28 shots gained per round on that surface. And if anything, that should be one of his best statistics in his database. Both of his wins have come on this surface. So it's very surprising to see that he has had such little success. It just shows how boomer bust he is on it as well. So while he has the great course history, a lot of people are going to go to him, especially looking at that 3M Open victory, thinking that's a sign of things to come. But in terms of his skill set, it's not a great fit for him. And again, his wedge play is one of his least sustainable assets. So at 16.8% ownership, he's a clear fade for me, and that's why he's at number 3. But for number 2, we have Kevin Na. He's an even 10 grand, being owned in even more lineups, 18.7% of lineups, and it seems everyone's coming around on Kevin Na. Now everyone wants to ride that Kevin Na train, and while he's looked very good of late, obviously with 5 straight top 25 finishes, 3 top 10s over that stretch as well, it's going to end at some point. He's been very volatile over that stretch, completely being carried by his around the green play, which is extremely scary. He's averaging 0.89 shots gained around the green per round. If you're an experienced DFS player or just somebody that golfs in general, you know how unsustainable that kind of rate is. Around the green is by far the most volatile stat. Even the best around the green players are prone to lose from time to time. The putter has been scorching hot as well, gaining 0.65 shots gained per round. Kevin Na is one of the best putters in the world. He walks in every damn putt, so that shouldn't necessarily be surprising, but it definitely is for a line of negative regression, especially when we take a look at his stats on the bent POA hybrid. He loses 0.19 shots gained to his baseline per round, so definitely due for some regression in that category. Has been carried by his around the green play, which is down, due to regress any second now, has already been playing out of his mind there. So at 18.7% ownership, at over $10,000 salary, somewhere we never see Kevin Na typically, it's definitely a fade for me at the Fortinet. And at number 1, we have Hideki Matsuyama. He's an even $11,000. Going to be relatively chalky as well at 23.4% ownership. He's been very hit or miss of late. We saw a 2nd place finish at the St. Jude, a 4th place finish at the Olympics, and of course a few missed cuts in between. His last performance at the Tour Championship was even more volatile. He shot a 77 in day 1, ended up losing strokes in every category at East Lake except around the green. Again, around the green, extremely volatile. At least he was able to gain with that. But coming into a course here at Silverado where you're going to need to score, you're going to need to put up birdies in bunches, I don't want to be targeting Hideki after one of his worst rounds in, quite frankly, 4 or 5 years. We haven't seen him lose that many strokes with his ball striking since he was a rookie on tour. And for somebody like Hideki, that's glaring, right? He's such a good ball striker. He's almost a machine. His swing is just so consistent. For him to have those type of troubles, and especially for us not to see them on TV, he was hardly televised. It's scary to me. I mean, God knows what was going on. He could have been shaking them left and right. Wasn't on the PGA Tour live coverage or anything like that. So I have no idea what he was doing. But statistically, and what we can see from the stats, it was extremely, extremely ugly. On top of the swing struggles, his worst putting surface by far is the bent POA surface, losing an additional 0.22 shots gained per round on that surface. He's already an atrocious putter. He's coming in with atrocious form with his ball striking. Doesn't have good vibes here. So just like Kevin Na, the price and ownership don't help him either. Very expensive at $11,000. So he's a clear fade for me for this week's contest. I wanted to quickly remind you guys that I have a Patreon page. If you guys are looking for my projections and takes on every player in this week's field, look no further than my Patreon page. Link will be in the description. Just $1 to join for the entire month. Again, projections for every player for every event during that month. And one of the best, if not the best, values on all of the industry. You get projections in terms of points for every player in the field. You also get ownership updates. You get access to Discord to ask me any questions, or the rest of the community any questions that you guys have, as well as some game theory notes, some extra tools in terms of course fit, player profiles, all that kind of fun stuff. And it's going to keep growing. We're going to add a lineup optimizer over the next month or so, a few other tools that I have in mind, and just going to be a great value. So make sure to get in there. Link is in the description. And now let's get back for our sleeper picks. And now getting into the sleeper picks. At number 3, we have Doug, the Grim Reaper Ghim at $7,900. He's being vastly underowned this week at just 8.2%. And we just have to take a look at his putting to figure out why he should be owned at the level he should be. And that's because of his splits on the bent POA surface. On Bermuda, he's going to struggle mightily. He loses over a stroke per round on that surface. And unfortunately for Ghim, that's one of the most common surfaces on tour. If you take a look at pure bent grass, so that would be just the bent grass surface, no hybrid or anything like that, he's about average. So it's really decent for somebody like him. He's typically one of the worst putters on tour. So if you put him on bent grass, you're usually going to feel pretty good about Doug Ghim. But if you put him on just pure POA and NUA, and this is a massive sample size, he has plenty of rounds on this, he gains 0.82 strokes per round putting. That's not better than his baseline. That's period. He becomes a straight great putter. It's like a switch goes off in his head. He instantly becomes one of the best putters on tour. And here at Silverado, where the mix of grass is closer to like a 70-30 split in terms of POA versus bent, I think it's going to be extremely helpful for a short game. So obviously still was good on bent grass, even better on the POA NUA type of hybrid. And outside the putting, he's just an absolute all-around stud. We don't worry about the rest of his game. Since July 1st, he's gaining a whopping 0.66 shots gained off the tee per round, and perhaps just surprisingly 0.09 shots gained approach per round. Fell off a little bit towards the end of the year, got into a little bit of a slump about a month before the season ended, but finished strong, which you like to see. And typically he's one of the best iron players in the world, so we expect that to rebound at some point. And if we see that this week, the off the tee game is there, the putting should be there as well. Is very good on these surfaces. I expect great things from Doug Ghim. And at number 2, we have Maverick McNealy, who at just 10.4% ownership, I expected him to be much more owned this week, especially on Monday. But at $8,600, he's a great value in that range, is head and shoulders above everyone else in that range in terms of course fit, in my opinion. And if we take a look at how he putts on bent POA and POA, he's pretty much identically good. Gains about 0.4 shots gained in each category. Is what we're used to seeing from Maverick McNealy. But when we take a look at Bermuda grass, he struggles mightily. So for him to get out on the West Coast, to get away from that Bermuda, I think it's going to do a lot of wonders for McNealy, just like it does for Doug Ghim. But outside of that familiarity, he was on an absolute tear to end the 2020 season. Since July 1st, he's gaining a whopping 0.38 shots gained off the tee per round, also 0.29 shots gained short game per round, which for him is actually a little bit lower than his baseline. So could have been better with the short game, but in terms of his ball striking, hasn't been better in his career. To end that stretch, he made every single cut since July 1st, also had 4 top 25 finishes. So I expected much higher ownership, like I was saying before. If he's going to be owned nearly single digits this week, I'm going to be 3 or even 4x the field. And at number 1, we have Marc Leishman. He's $9,500, which is going to keep a lot of people off of him. That's why we see him in the single digits there at just a 9.1% expected ownership. But again, he comes in number 1 to me. He's growing on me a lot throughout this week. a large part due to how he's played here in the past. If we take a look at his history here, he has a third place finish in his first start at Silverado. Again, his weakness, his majority is off the tee. Typically not somebody who's long off the tee. Also deals with accuracy issues, which typically don't go hand in hand. But this might be one of the only courses on tour, maybe one of only 2 or 3, where you can get away with being horrible off the tee. So he's a great putter. He's very good in the 125 to 150 bucket, also the 100 to 125 bucket, which are extremely prevalent at a course like Silverado. And if we take a deep dive into his putting splits, we find that he's also a putting specialist on bent/POA. Gaining an extra 0.31 shots gained per round on it. Again, he has relatively mediocre form coming in, a few made cuts, a few 50 place finishes, those kind of things. But somebody who's a world-class player, somebody who turns it around very quickly, just like Dustin Johnson, can kind of flip the switch week after week. And at single-digit ownership, when we have the kind of course fit that we have here, that's exactly the kind of guy that I'm willing to take a risk on. So not a cash play by any means. Obviously, Marc Leishman, a little bit volatile. You want to avoid him in those senses. But in a GPP format where you're looking for those ceilings, he's definitely the guy in that format. That's all I've got for this week's fades and sleeper picks, guys. Let me know in the comments who your biggest fade this week is for a chance to win a free month of my Patreon projections. If you guys can take somebody above $9,000 on Draftkings and have them miss the cut, you'll be entered into a draw for a free month of those projections. So make sure to leave a comment down there and let me know why as well. We'd always love to have a little bit of a debate down there. On my Patreon, you guys can get access to my projections for every player, like I mentioned before. So if you guys don't want to have to wait to win a contest, that kind of thing, you just want to get direct access, go ahead and check out the link in the description. Again, it's just $1. That's the best part about it. One of the best values on the entire industry. So make sure to go ahead and check that out. As always, I really appreciate the viewership. If you guys haven't liked and subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and do so. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys at Wednesday at 7 p.m. for that live stream. I'm also going to be having a live stream tomorrow night. Thursday night, going over the showdown slate for Friday. So we'll go over any changes on the golf course, whether any weather impacts are coming in, whether there's any, glaring differences between the morning wave, the afternoon wave, that kind of thing. So look forward to that on Thursday afternoon as well.